Okay, I'm Todd Loewen, Minister of Forestry and Parks. We're here in Hinton today to talk a little bit about the Jasper wildfire. This fire, of course, started and escalated very quickly. Alberta was there to help Parks Canada with that fire right from the start. And maybe I should mention here, I'm joined with Mayor Ireland here and Minister Jason Nixon here too. And I believe our federal counterparts will be here shortly. Again, as we've gone through this fire, we've had a couple days of decent weather that have helped suppress the fire a bit, but now things are warming up and the temperature's rising and the fuel is drying out, and we're going to see escalated fire activity as we go into the next few days. And I know the people in Parks Canada and supported by the Alberta wildfire are going to do a great job with that. There's a lot of work to do. This fire is huge. It's probably the largest wildfire that Jasper Park has seen. And again, Alberta Wildfire is here to support in any way that we possibly can to make sure that we reduce the likelihood of that fire returning back to the town of Jasper, which at this point is still a possibility. We need to make sure that we get that work done around the town of Jasper to make sure that we can keep the rest of the town safe and of course get residents back into the town as quick as possible. So I'll turn time over to Minister Nixon to add a little more.
Well, thanks, Mr. Loewen, and thanks for all the hard work of you and your team, as well as the National Park Service in the town of Jasper. It's my first chance to get here to Hinton. Obviously, I've been working with our team to manage some of our end of this from the social services sector in Edmonton. The first thing I would like to just remind everybody through the media, if I could, is around evacuation payments. We've been able to, one, make evacuation payments for the Jasper evacuation available quicker, where we would be past that timeline anyway, where it would have been available. But looking today on the way up, we're about half of the people that have evacuated Jasper that are eligible for payments have registered. And so I just want to encourage everybody who did evacuate Jasper, whether that would be a permanent resident, a temporary worker, or even a temporary foreign worker, who are eligible for that support, to go to alberta.ca, where there will be a variety of website links and phone numbers to be able to get people to those evacuation payments, as well as to make sure that people go and register with Red Cross, which is also making about $750 payment on top of the $1,250 per adult and $500 per child the Alberta government is making available. I want to be clear, those evacuation payments are designed for the evacuation component. This is not what is going to take, obviously, to be able to support everybody as we go through the full rebuild of Jasper. But I do think it's important that everybody knows they're entitled to that. The government wants to help. And if you go on that process, you will find a variety of ways to do that, either through our offices, online, or through different phone numbers, and we'll get you the support that you need. At that same website, we also have available other emergency supports beyond that for people that may find themselves in some circumstances as they're waiting for insurance and those type of other conversations to take place to get help. The reason I'm here today is we've been working to be able to get our seniors back onto this side of the line into Alberta. My department, the Department of Seniors, Community and Social Services, has several facilities that were in Jasper. Some of them one of them did not survive. The rest appear to have survived, though we still have to continue to work to get permanent electricity to be able to fully understand the context of what's happening in those other two facilities. But most of our seniors had to evacuate through Valmont into the BC side when that evacuation was taking place. And so we've been working very closely to stay in contact with all of them. Many of them will be at different levels of healthcare needs. And so it was a high priority, I know, for all of us to be able to make sure that they were safe. Tomorrow, we will start to bring our seniors back across the line. Most of them that are in Valmont right now staying in hotels, so they will come through the park, not the town site, and then come here to Hinton. And then we'll go to a variety of different services depending on what their needs are. I was just touring just a few moments ago one of our senior facilities here in Hinton that is ready to take some of those evacuees. We will have, again, 18 continuing care patients, which would be the highest level of medical care that would be needed within our senior type of conversations that are coming back in, and then we'll go into an Alberta Health Services continuing care facility and continue to receive the care that they would have been receiving in Jasper. I will note the continuing care facility in Jasper, it seems to still be intact. It's actually attached to the hospital. And then we will have 15 of our self-contained seniors, what I mean by self-contained, living in self-contained government housing in Jasper that have a pretty high level of independence. They've been in Valmont in hotels. They are coming back here to Hinton tomorrow, and will be staying in hotels that have already been arranged for them. And then on our kind of between independent living and continuing care is our lodge space. The lodge did survive, but obviously we need to get those individuals back onto this side of the line, and we will be bringing 15 of those individuals back. That will leave 17 that are deciding to remain with family for the time being, but we've been able to make sure that that space is available depending on what those individual family circumstances will be. It remains the highest priority of the Alberta government and Alberta's emergency cabinet. I also think, and I hope, certainly the National Park Service and the federal government, to also get all Jasperites an opportunity to get back into the town. It's our view that it has to happen as soon as possible. The Premier brings it up every morning when we meet, and we are working diligently between all levels of government to be able to make sure that we have access to at least a bus tour as soon as possible. What we learned with both Slave Lake and Fort McMurray is the quicker that we can get individuals home to be able to see what has taken place with their property, the quicker we can start things like insurance and other critical components to really rebuild the town. And so we're conscious with the fact that we're bringing seniors back through the park, that lots of people from Jasper are going to start to ask the government, why can't I go see my home? And we think it's a very reasonable conversation. It has to happen safely, but I do want to reiterate is the position of the Alberta government needs to happen quickly, and we will be pushing for that to happen shortly within the coming days. So it's good news, more people returning to the province. There's a lot of work still ahead of us, and we're going to continue to be here on the ground to be able to make sure we can support Jasperites with everything that we can. And with that, I think I'd be happy to turn it over to the Mayor.
Thank you, Minister. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd just like to begin by acknowledging Minister Guilbeault, the federal minister responsible for Parks Canada, and Minister Randy Boissonnault joined us today. And with Minister Nixon and Minister Loewen, we've just had another briefing in the command post. It is a conversation that sadly I've had before. These ministers are hearing it for the first time, and it is as jarring as ever to be confronted with the reality. And I regret that not all of our residents are privy to the same information. It's just a consequence of the reality of the situation, but be assured that all of us understand the impacts, and having seen the maps and visualized and heard from those on the ground what actually happened, it better equips all of us to confront the continuing efforts to suppress the fire, to get our citizens back into their community and to start to rebuild. I appreciate that for so many of our residents, they want to get back and see their homes. I have had that opportunity, as you know. It is jarring, but it is also part of the healing journey that we will all have to go through. And so we are working on that, recognizing that there is still fire on the landscape. We can only let people return when it is safe for them, when it is safe for the people still on the ground responding to the wildfire that continues on the landscape. And we acknowledge that weather like this, increasing temperatures, decreasing humidity, and a forecast of increasing winds are all prescriptions for fanning the flames, and it will happen. So we are cautious, but we recognize the need, and we're working to that. I thank Minister Nixon for the good news about our seniors who will soon be back in the province. I know they're desperate to get back at least closer to home. And as I say, others are looking for an opportunity to get back to Jasper, to at least see their homes, particularly those who have lost them, and to see for themselves what that looks like, and to begin that difficult process of coming to terms with the loss. And I am happy to announce today that that has been now confirmed. I cannot give a timeline again for re-entry for that limited purpose for residents to see their homes, but I can confirm that our hardworking crew in unified command, that is the municipality of Jasper working hand in glove with Parks Canada, have developed plans that will allow our citizens to return to the community in a supervised fashion to see their homes. I thank the province of Alberta. Alberta Emergency Management will provide the logistics for those visits. And so again, all jurisdictions working together are going to ensure that we can allow this to happen when conditions permit it to happen safely. And so I thank the Minister on behalf of Parks Canada for his efforts on that behalf. I thank the province, Minister Nixon and Mr. Loewen for their efforts. And of course, I thank our own municipal crew as part of Unified Command for their deep understanding of just what our community continues to go through as this incident continues. With that, ending on that, what I hope is a little bit of helpful news. I invite Minister Guilbeault and Minister Boissonnault to the microphone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Minister Loewen, Minister Nixon, my dear friend and colleague Randy. It's a very humbling experience to be here and to witness firsthand the level of collaboration between the officials from the City of Jasper, officials from Government of Alberta, as well as federal government, whether it's the Canadian Armed Forces and obviously Parks Canada. As Minister responsible for parks, it gives me incredible pride to see all of the hardworking people and all of the work that has been done. I've had the chance to speak to many over the course of the last week and some days, video conferencing on the phone, but it's the first time for me to meet some of them face to face. And on behalf of all the federal family, on behalf of Canadians from coast to coast to coast, I want to say thank you, especially to Parks Canada staff, but obviously to everyone who's helped save the City of Jasper. The City of Jasper is arguably one of the best prepared town in the country to face the type of wildfire we've seen. The city officials, working with parks, working with Alberta officials, have been putting in place measures to try and limit the potential impact of forest fires for decades. It's what we've been doing in Jasper since the late 90s that have led to what is now a national program called Fire Smart, which we're replicating all across the country, removing dead trees, thinning, doing landscaping, replacing conifers with deciduous trees to try and minimize the impacts of a potential forest fire on a town like Jasper. And the fact that all of these things were done have helped to save large parts of the city. Have we not done that, there would be no more Jasper today. This jewel that we have as part of the National Parks network would be simply gone. And for that, on behalf of the federal government, I want to say thank you to all of the hardworking people who've made that happen, certainly in the last week and a half, but also over all these years. I came from Edmonton this morning with the mayor. We're working together to see how the city and parks, as well as with the Alberta government, we can work as seamlessly as possible in terms of the recovery. I've spoken with insurance industry officials to make sure that we on the federal side do everything we can to accelerate the process so that people can get their claims processed as rapidly as possible. I want to reiterate that all leases that are in place right now will remain. There will be no changes to that as far as Parks Canada is concerned. We will be there to help the Jasperites, the people of Jasper, rebuild as rapidly as possible. Unfortunately, our main priority right now remains the fact that although fires are no longer present in the town, there's still fires around the town. And that's the number one priority. Making sure that we get those fires under control, continue to protect all the infrastructures, especially the critical infrastructures in the city of Jasper, and then as the mayor said, as well as ministers from Alberta, work on a scheduled re-entry for people to go back as rapidly as possible. So thank you very much, and I'll pass it over to my friend Randy.
Well, thanks very much, Steven. Mayor Ireland Richard, thank you for your leadership and for your voice through this time. I know people are anchoring on you your strength, your resilience, your own personal loss, and yet you're here today representing Jasperites, and so I want to thank you for that. Ministers Loewen and Nixon, we've worked on a lot of projects together. We're going to work on this until Jasper's rebuilt, until it comes back better than ever before. To Steven, your responsibility for parks is a big one, and I want to thank Ron and Andrew and all of the people here who did everything possible to get to where we are today. I want to thank all the first responders. I know that there are people who were retired who came back, who are now on site because of how important this is to Albertans. Jasper is a jewel, not just for a kid that grew up in Morinville, but for Albertans from Sundre to your part of the world, Todd, to Canadians and to people around the world. And so I want you to know that we're bringing the full weight of the federal government to this issue. In my own Department of Employment Social Development Canada, we have fast-tracked anybody who needs an employment insurance claim, old age security, GIS, your childcare benefits. Go to servicecanada.ca. This postal code has been fast-tracked, and if there's any issues with people getting their benefits, I want to know about it, and we're going to make sure that people get the help that they need. I also know how times like this bring the best out of Albertans and Canadians. We've got radio stations. We've got the Alberta Bottle Depot Association, raised $1.5 million, and the money that Canadians are putting into the Red Cross, being matched by the federal government, being matched by the provincial government, being matched up to $100,000 by Rogers, is making sure that people, evacuees, are now getting $750 per person from the Red Cross. I was at the evacuation center in Edmonton earlier this week. Those evacuation centers will stay open, and as Minister Nixon, as the mayor, and as Minister Guilbeault said, safety first. This is an active fire situation in the area, and we need people to see their properties when it is safe to do so. I want to reiterate, because what Steven said is really important. If you've got a lease with Parks Canada, that lease is intact, and we are going to fast track and streamline the ability to get temporary accommodations and the long-term build done. We will not rest until Jasper once again shines as a jewel in the Parks crown of Canada. Donc en français, nous sommes ici pour faire certain que tout le gouvernement du Canada est ici pour rebâtir Jasper quand il est sauf et sûr pour le faire. On va travailler avec l'Alberta pour faire certain que les résidents puissent retourner en ville pour regarder leur propriété. C'est très important de faire ça, mais seulement quand on a plus de contrôle sur les feux. Tout le système du gouvernement fédéral, que ce soit Transport Canada, les Forces armées canadiennes, mon ministère de développement emploi social, nous sommes ici pour aider les gens. On va restaurer Jasper parce que c'est un bijou dans la couronne des parcs ici au Canada. Oliver's going to manage it from there, so come on up, Oliver, come on up. Just let us know who you're with and your name. Dean's right here. Dean will take it.
You bet, I'm going to. Yep. So Dean MacDonald, I'm the one of the unified commanders, instant commander for wildfire piece with Parks Canada. So the reason we have the current timelines we have is it's now a period of time where the fire behavior is reduced enough that we can safely move traffic through. Again, that may switch as things get hotter and drier. You're standing in this parking lot, you can see how warm it is right now. The reason we have the times right now, we don't want anybody on the road overnight. We can't secure safety. The reason we have those 2-hour blocks, those 3-hour blocks, is so we can move our personnel in and out. As we know, with all the semi-traffic we have right now backed up, it could be wall to wall, all the way down. So we had to secure a space for safe travel for our crews to get in to where they're going and then send the traffic through again. Same thing at night, ability to get our folks back off, because we got hundreds of personnel in vehicles that need to get back to their food.
You want that one, Jason?
Excellent.
I'm not the transportation minister, but if Minister Dreesen, Alberta's transportation minister, was here, I know that he would tell you it is a very important route. He'd also tell you every route going in and out of the province and across the province is incredibly important for our economy, and obviously to be able to move goods and be able to make sure we could supply communities and even supply the firefighting efforts that are happening is obviously why we had to secure the highway. But also, again, I mean, the fact that we're able to now get Albertans who are in a situation where they would not have been able to travel through large portions of BC to come all the way around to Calgary or Grand Prairie to make it back home shows how important of a route that is, to be able to make sure that we can connect all of our communities to each other so we can support each other. So each morning when the emergency cabinet meets, Minister Dreesen continues to bring up that road, and I think that probably really illustrates how important that is as a route to the province.
Well, I mean, clearly we are seeing an increase in the number and severity of forest fires in Canada and across the world, as well as other natural catastrophes, which is why our government has presented the most comprehensive plan to fight climate change in the history of Canada. More than 100 measures, close to $200 billion of investment, a number of new regulatory initiatives, and in fact, the last time our emissions, our greenhouse gas pollutions level was so low in Canada was when O.J. Simpson was on trial, and the thing you're holding in your hand was invented but not commercialized yet. So our plan is working, our emissions are coming down, but we have to do that in a way that helps communities, helps workers, and supports the economy, and that's exactly what we're doing. Well, I mean, as I said, we are on track, according to the Canadian Climate Institute, for the first time in the history of our country to meet our interim 2026 targets and to meet our 2030 targets. It would be the first time in the history of our country that we're able to meet a climate change target. We know that more needs to be done, and that's what we're actively engaged, working with our partners in the provinces, territories, municipalities, private sector, Indigenous nations. I should also mention the fact that we have now the first ever national adaptation plan. Again, working with municipalities, with provinces, territories, Indigenous leaders, the private sector to see how we will adapt to a changing climate in Canada.
Yeah, so no, when we look at the landscape that we have right now, we've had 2 big years in a row. We look at the last year, 2.2 million hectares of land burned in Alberta. That was a record. The record that was broke was from I think the late 80s, mid 80s. So again, and this year here, we've only have about 25% of what we've had burned last year. So we look at the whole landscape, and looking back to 2020. 2020, we had 3,500 hectares burned in Alberta. So there's been a dramatic change that's been fluctuating over time when it comes to the amount of land burned. We look at our forests are aging. We've been fighting forest fires in Alberta for over 90 years now, and that's created a forest that's aged and is ready to burn. If we look at the history of Alberta, it's the landscape that we have was created by wildfire over thousands of years. Our First Nations done burns to create habitat, and that hasn't been done for so many decades, that we've got a landscape now that is ready to burn, and we need to be able to manage that and do what we can to make sure that we handle that moving into the future so that we can protect our communities in Alberta. Thanks. Our oil and gas industry in Canada, and particularly in Alberta, is doing a fantastic job when it comes to emissions reductions. It's the model for the world to follow, and I think the rest of the world should follow what we're doing here in Alberta. Thanks.
D'abord, je présente toutes mes excuses. Je n'ai parlé qu'en anglais au début, j'étais un peu émotif. Mais essentiellement, je pense que ce qui est important de souligner et ce qui est impressionnant, ce qui m'a impressionné quand je suis arrivé ici, c'est le niveau de collaboration entre la municipalité, la province, le gouvernement fédéral. Que ce soit les pompiers du gouvernement de l'Alberta, les Forces armées canadiennes, Parc Canada, les gens de la municipalité de Jasper. Il y a vraiment un travail incroyable qui est fait et c'est ce travail-là qui a permis en grande partie de sauver une très bonne partie de la ville de Jasper. Notre priorité demeure encore la sécurité. Alors, il n'y a plus de feu dans la ville en tant que telle, mais il y a encore des feux autour. Alors, bien sûr, on veut que les gens puissent retourner dans la ville le plus rapidement possible et nous travaillons tout le monde ensemble pour voir comment on peut faire ça, mais il faut le faire de façon sécuritaire. Avant de permettre aux gens de retourner, on veut s'assurer que ce soit sécuritaire pour ces personnes-là de le faire et c'est là-dessus qu'on travaille présentement.
Juste pour enchaîner sur ce que Steven vient de dire, nous sommes en étroite collaboration, moi, Steven, ministre Harjit Sajjan, ministre Leblanc, ministre Pablo Rodriguez, tous les ministres qui sont interpellés par les différentes situations qui font face les gens de Jasper. Et moi, mon rôle comme ministre de l'Alberta, ça va être de travailler en étroite collaboration avec ministre Nixon, avec ministre Loewen, avec la première ministre, avec tous les ministres qui sont responsables pour aider les gens sur le terrain et aussi avec le personnel du Parc Canada en tant que ministre de l'Alberta. C'est ça une priorité pour moi. Moi, je veux qu'on rebâtit Jasper mieux que ça ne l'était et qu'on le fait au moment que c'est sécuritaire de le faire. Et je suis entièrement d'accord avec les ministres provinciaux que plus tôt, c'est mieux, mais seulement quand c'est sécuritaire de le faire, parce que, comme le maire a dit, ça va être très important de faire le deuil de son propriété, sa maison, de le voir en chair et en os, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé. Et ça va être difficile. On a vécu ça à Fort McMurray, on a vécu ça à Lytton, on a vécu ça ailleurs au pays. Et il faut aider ces gens à passer au travers ce deuil qui va sûrement venir. And just so Ministers Loewen and Nixon and the Mayor get what I said, we're going to work together every day to get this rebuilt together as Alberta Minister federally. And to your earlier point, Jason, we take this very seriously. This is a national, it is a crisis for us, it's an emergency for us. We're going to work on this together to get all the work done. So as a former tourist minister, let me say to any of the businesses and the business owners in Jasper and the parks, we feel your pain, we understand your preoccupation, we know that this is a challenge for you and for this season, and we're going to work with the province, we're going to work with parks to get you on your feet as soon as possible. But with fires burning in the region, we cannot talk right now about restoring tourism and getting businesses restarted in the immediate term. When it comes to individuals coming in to get their properties, if they've come from a different part of the country or a different country with their RVs, we will work through that when it's safe to do so. And Mayor, you and I met when I was tourism minister. We know how important this area is to tourism, but we need to get people back into their homes safely first and do this rebuild in an orderly fashion. So any comments you would have, Mayor, on people coming back in, or Parks Canada about the safety of people coming and getting their RVs?
What I would like to add is that, of course, what Minister Boissonnault has said is the reality. That is, until it's safe, visitors who left property in campgrounds or elsewhere in the national park, they're anxious to get it, but they can't get in. But the fact that no plan has been announced does not mean that the people in the Incident Command Center have not worked on this problem extensively. So they will have a plan when they can unfold it, when they can announce it. It's going to depend on the weather, but certainly people are well aware of the needs of our visitors. And we are a community that in normal times welcomes up to 2.5 million visitors annually from across Canada and around the world. We understand their needs. We know how to serve them when we're able, but we're not able to serve them in that capacity with fire on the landscape. Doesn't mean we're not working on plans. In fact, I can tell you that those plans are being worked on in the Incident Command Center, along with re-entry for our citizens and the tours for residents that I was just able to announce today. But again, recognizing that the implementation of those plans will be weather and fire dependent.
Dean's got an answer to the RV.
Sure. So I'll answer for the wildfire operations piece. We are looking at plans, no timelines yet, but some of the operational pieces we can look at is task teams being able to go into these campgrounds, find ways to move RVs to essential locations, find ways to pack up camp gear, take inventory, and move things to a central location for pickup. Again, this is a very complex situation. Lots of active fire on the landscape out there. So there is plans being looked at, what can be done to try and find the best way to facilitate people being reunited with their belongings.
En fait, dans le cas de Jasper, là, c'est près, au cours des dernières années, c'est près de 2000 hectares sur lesquels les gens de Parc Canada, de la municipalité, ont fait des interventions, soit pour enlever du bois mort, soit pour refaire l'aménagement, pour mettre des feuillus plutôt que des conifères, pour faire des feux préventifs. Donc, au total, près de 2000 hectares. Je n'ai pas le chiffre en tête pour Banff également, mais quand je disais tout à l'heure que Jasper a été l'un des exemples qui a servi à établir le standard national qu'on appelle en français IntelliFeu, Fire Smart, le même genre de mécanisme a été mis en place autour de Banff également. Donc, que ce soit de l'aménagement, que ce soit planter de différentes essences d'arbres, que ce soit d'enlever le bois mort, donc de façon à chercher à enlever le plus de combustible possible. Toutes ces choses-là sont faites également autour de Banff et de plus en plus dans l'ensemble autour des municipalités partout à l'échelle du pays. Merci.
Si je peux enchaîner là-dessus, juste pour donner une idée de l'ampleur du feu, ça brûlait une superficie moitié de la taille de la ville d'Edmonton. On parle de 36 000 hectares. La ville d'Edmonton, c'est 74 000 hectares. Donc, si vous imaginez faire la route pour 30 minutes pour traverser toute la ville d'Edmonton et on voit que le désastre, c'est ça l'ampleur, ce que nos collègues à Parc Canada, les feux de l'Alberta, les pompiers de l'Alberta et les gens de Jasper ont dû lutter contre. Et comme le maire a dit, presque 25 000 personnes évacuées sans aucun incident, sans aucun mort. Ça, c'est quelque chose d'historique et je dois féliciter, donner un chapeau à tous les gens et tous les gens de Jasper qui ont été capables d'évacuer tellement tranquille et tellement en sécurité. Absolument, Jeremy. Look, I just want people to get a sense because Steven and I have been talking about this and I did some of the math and this is a fire that's burned about 35,000 hectares. If you take a look at the size of the city of Edmonton at 74,000 hectares, this fire has burned an area half the size of the city of Edmonton. And you could drive for 25 or 30 minutes. Minister Loewen did it. He drove for 25 or 30 minutes and all he could see was burnt out forest. So we are talking about something that is on a scale hard to imagine. It's heartbreaking to witness. And the people of Jasper, Parks Canada, Government of Alberta, Government of Canada, between 10 at night and 3 in the morning, over 5 hours, got 25,000 people evacuated, not just from the town site, but from trails, from campsites, from lodges, no incident and no loss of life. And that is something that truly needs to be acknowledged.
Yeah, just for some context for all of us rural MLAs, we all know the different lingo for our towns, for our senior facilities are different town to town. So in Jasper, we have our continuing care facility, which sometimes is actually still called the Lodge, I think, for some locals. That would be attached to the hospital. We know it's up, it's survived, and it's been going through assessments at the same time as we went through the assessment for the hospital in Jasper. One of the big challenges that we're having in that area is that we actually can't continue to finish that assessment until we actually get electricity to the building so we can see what's going on, as well as actually natural gas. To refire up a hospital takes, I learned today, a bit of a natural gas process to be able to, that ability to be able to make sure it works. But that continuing care facility seems to be up. Individuals that would be in there would be the most in need of the most health care in their period of life. And I want to stress all of them have been safely either in a BC facility or an Alberta facility, and we're working to get them all home here in Alberta to be cared for going forward. And then we also have the Alpine Lodge, I believe, is the name. That facility is still standing. I've seen pictures of it. In fact, Mr. Loewen was there the other day and confirmed that it was still up for my department. But obviously we can't get everybody there. And we'll have a look inside a little better once we can with lights on to understand potential smoke damage. But we do think we can get people home to that facility pretty quickly once we're able to re-enter the town. And then we lost the Alberta government's lodge that is run by Evergreen Foundation here, which is the housing management authority in this neck of the woods. And that's self-contained seniors housing. And most of those seniors have ended up in Valmont, and they, again, as I mentioned earlier, will be returning to this side of the line tomorrow. And we've arranged to be able to make sure that they all have appropriate hotel facilities and or facilities in other Evergreen housing complexes that are with the government of Alberta elsewhere, very close by in the county. And that will obviously be the facility that will take the longest to rebuild. I can tell you that my Assistant Deputy Minister of Housing here in Alberta, David Williams, is on it already. We're a leaseholder of the federal government in this context, so we have some similarities with other people that are going to be trying to understand that insurance process. But we're already on it, and we intend to be able to make sure that building's standing up as fast as possible, and all those who have called Jasper home before this can hopefully be able to return and be able to enjoy that in their senior years. The facility that did burn down, there was 32 inside the facility at the time. I think it had capacity for a couple more than that, but there were 32 in that facility. Again, 15 that are currently in hotels in Valmont, and will be home soon, and 17 that are safe with family either in BC or Alberta. Well, I should mention, I mean, my fellow colleagues, I don't know what the rules are, but I can. And I'd ask him to come up, but the local member of parliament for Jasper's here, Gerald Soroka, which I think is important to make sure that he's part of that process. So good to see you, Gerald. But that's who Gerald is, and if anybody's got any questions from a local perspective.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to respond to this question and then let you have another one. Your question brings up what for me is another really important topic here. So as the Minister Nixon said, different towns have different nomenclature for various facilities. So what he called the lodge, we call the manor. What he also called the lodge, we call the lodge. In the manor, which was destroyed, 32 residents, mostly now in a hotel in Valemont, a hotel owned by someone who lost a hotel in Jasper. So just a bit of context, residents who were required to evacuate from that manor to Valemont have been housed in a hotel there for the most part. The other ones from the lodge who were evacuated, I think mostly up in Marithorpe right now. However, what I wanted to say is that you have seen the numbers of 360 roughly structures destroyed. I urge you not to equate 360 structures with the number of residents who have been impacted. The manor is one structure. It represents those 32 family units. Similarly, we lost apartment buildings of various sizes. Some were 12-unit apartments, some were 36, some were 30. So yes, we recognize in the information that has gone out that roughly 30% of the structures have been destroyed. That does not necessarily equate with the impact that this has had on our residential population. We're still working to develop those numbers. Unlikely that many units accommodated a single person. That's just not the style of living in Jasper. And it is known that many of those structures included multiple units with multiple people in each of them. So again, I thank you for the question because it gave me an opportunity to address the real human impact of this is not just the structures, and the structures are not representative of the number of people that have been directly impacted by loss of properties.
I'm actually just going to add something to the mayor is 100% correct, obviously about his community and the uniqueness of the housing conditions that would take place there, which is very relevant to the rebuild. And I just want to assure Jasperites and Albertans and Canadians that this is top of mind, even while the hardworking men and women that you see here at the command center and all across the park are fighting to be able to contain the fire and deal with the immediate emergency situation. The rebuild task force are already meeting right now in Edmonton. I got briefed on some of the housing issues yesterday. I feel very confident that they're live to it and they recognize the uniqueness of Jasper. And I think, you know, I can tell you, certainly as a housing minister in the province of Alberta, we've been very, very clear to the department that they're to bring everything that we've ever learned about housing, particularly in the last couple of years as we've worked on the housing crisis across the country, to bear on this project and to be able to make sure that not only are we rebuilding Jasper for those who call it home permanently, but also to recognize the uniqueness for the temporary workforces that have to take place in Jasper, and the reality of that, the fact that we're building a national park that is just a little different than building any other town. So I just want to make sure Albertans know that work is taking place right now, even if it doesn't feel like it is because everybody can't get in at the moment. That work is taking place, and I'm very comfortable, and I think Mr. Loewen would agree with me that we will be ahead of what we need to be once we are finally able to get everybody back in the town and rebuild.